Welcome to Spiritual Dialogue with Father Odon de Castro. We are here at Cariana Lay Monastic Community. I'm your host, Brother Lodi, and with us is Sister Tachi.
Yes po, Father. You are going to continue what we were discussing before, right, Father? The defects of teachers and the defects of pupils regarding the Catholic doctrines.
Yes, we are now in the 17th week in ordinary time. And the best way to learn the Catholic teachings on how to go to heaven is from the liturgy. That's the best place. No? The Pope and the bishops are great help if they are doing it right. But in general, the liturgy is the best place because in the liturgy cannot change the teachings of the church because you read it from the Bible. You read the first reading, the second reading, the third reading. So there are no changes. Unlike when the preaching comes from a priest, from a bishop, from the Pope, they can change it because they're human beings and so on like that. So it's best to learn our Catholic doctrine from the liturgy. That's the best. That's the reason why Satan is trying to destroy the liturgy, the Mass and so on. So we can never learn anything from anybody anymore. Not from the Pope, not from the bishops, not from the priest, and not from the liturgy. So the question is, where can we learn our Catholic faith? And later on we shall show you there is another place where we can learn it.
You want to say the Mass is the best place to evangelize Catholic doctrine to ordinary people?
Yeah, the Mass is the best. It's the most complete. So during this 17th week in ordinary time, the liturgy has been discussing what we have been discussing. The two problems we have why the Catholic Church is under confusion right now, the dark. And the defect is one, that the teachers are not teaching in the right way, and the students are not learning in the right way. Now, when the teachers are bad and the students are bad, you cannot learn anything, of course.
Yes, Father.
And we can see this in the example of Christ, in the sense that when Christ was preaching, he was the best preacher, he was the best teacher. But among his listeners, there are always those who believe and those who do not believe. Those who understand and those who do not understand. So there is a defect among the listeners. There is a defect among the students.
The teaching of Christ, what is the basic, the very essence of his teaching so that we lay people would understand? I understand that there are deeper meaning, but the basic that we should understand, what is that? What did he tell us? What did he preach to us?
Now, everything that Christ taught is simply on how we can save our souls. He did not teach anything else except how we can save our souls. Now, during the time of Christ, he was the one personally who was teaching.
Yes.
But then he ascended to heaven, and he is physically no longer teaching. He appointed apostles. He appointed the successor of the apostles, who are the popes and the bishops. He appointed preachers. So human beings are the ones teaching now. So we do not expect these human beings, like the Pope, the bishops, and the priests, to be teaching us perfectly as Christ did.
But the teaching of Christ is being quoted by the apostle, like repent and believe.
Yeah, that's correct. They are teaching it, except, as we were saying, they are not teaching it correctly.
Yes.
You can say exactly the same words as Christ is saying, like the Protestants. They would quote Jesus Christ verbatim, They've memorized scriptures, the chapters, the verses. How come they cannot produce faith in the soul?
I think that is the biggest problem we have now because we do not have faith.
And that's what we're saying, that the problem in the Catholic Church now is that because the preachers are not preaching properly and the students are not learning properly, that there is no faith in the world today. So we mentioned these two facts, and we have been concentrating so far in the fact that the teachers who are supposed to teach us are not teaching properly. It's getting worse now in the sense that not only are they not teaching us properly, they're teaching us wrong things.
If we get the wrong teaching, how can we save our soul, Father?
Well, that's a sad story, and that's a good question. How do you save your soul? But still possible, and we are going to discuss that a little bit at the end.
Yes, Father.
How to save our souls in the midst of a situation where the teachers are not teaching properly and the students are not learning properly. And as I told you, in the 17 weekdays of the liturgy, 17 in ordinary time, 7 week in ordinary time, 17 week, It teaches us how to learn properly by ourselves. And we have the parable, of course, of the seed and the field. Parable of the seed and the field. The seed is the teacher, and the field is the student.
Is that different from mustard seed?
Yeah, and that's a little different. It's almost the same, but the parable of the mustard seed is showing us how powerful is a small faith.
Yes.
While the parable of the students is more on the parable of the Catholic Church. But we shall deal with that briefly later on. Our problem now is that there is a seminar that just ended here in the Philippines. It was held apparently in UST, University of Santo Tomas, the Dominican school, and the title is on the new evangelization. And you can see one of those speeches in Gloria TV, where our program also appears. It's somewhere down because this program would be earlier. It's Cardinal Tagle of the Philippines giving a talk to the participants in the new evangelization program. Now, in his speech, and you can notice it and hear it, he never mentions even a single point on how to evangelize.
Well, that's bad, Father.
Well, of course, because the topic is
It's
supposed to be
evangelization.
new evangelization,
Okay,
and he didn't say anything about evangelization. And I would suspect that he did not know anything about the new evangelization because here in the Philippines and in the entire world, we have been discussing about new evangelization, the bishops.
Yes.
In America, South America, Europe, and so on, everybody is talking about the new evangelization, but they have never described it properly. And yet in the year 2013, that's quite some time ago, Pope Benedict held a Bishop Synod meeting
Yes, Father.
entitled The New Evangelization. And during that meeting, he ordered the secretary of the Bishop Synod to discuss the first important element of evangelization. First important element.
And what is that, Father? The first element.
I'll hold it for a while. Huh?
Yes, Father.
So he ordered them to discuss the first element. Because there are several stages in evangelization, actually 4 stages in evangelization.
Yes, Father.
And all you have to do is the first step, the first stage, only the first. You don't have to do the second, the third, and the fourth, because the second, the third, and the fourth are God's work. It's the work of God, not of men. The work of man is only the first one,
Which is,
which Pope Benedict said, discuss that, because that's what man is supposed to do in the process of evangelization. Only step number 1. That's a Bishop Synod, 2013. After the Synod, they never talk about it.
And now they brought it up.
No, the point is, since that time on, they never discuss it. And up to now, they keep on mentioning the word new evangelization, but never mention the first step, which man is supposed to do. Not the second, the third, not the fourth. It's the first step that what we're supposed to do.
what could be the reason why they don't discuss the very first step?
Because they did not know it.
Oh boy.
In other words, the new evangelization of Pope Benedict and the one they're discussing now are two different things.
2 different things, but they use the same name.
Word, the same word. Okay.
So everybody thinks the same thing, but it's not the same thing. The new evangelization of Pope Benedict and John Paul II
Yes, I remember that.
is very, very different from the new evangelization they're discussing now. And that's why in the new evangelization seminar at the University of Santo Tomas, they never mention the first step. And because they never mention the first step, they still do not know the second, the third, and the fourth, as obviously seen in the speeches given by the speakers.
So what was the purpose for that? Sorry.
Of the seminar?
Yes.
Well, maybe to make money or what? Because you have to pay to attend those seminars.
Okay, so that was so there was no purpose to evangelize, to use that new evangelization. No reference to Pope Benedict and John Paul II, were there?
Well, I don't know if they were mentioning, because I did not hear the other
Ah, yes, okay, Father.
speakers. I only read the one of
Yeah.
Cardinal Tagle, because it's in Gloria TV,
I see what
which
you
you
mean,
can
Father.
still
Okay.
see it there. So let's go to his speech.
Okay, Father.
The speech of the Cardinal he was talking actually to God, to Christ. So they were showing always the Blessed Sacrament in the TV, in the video. They were showing the Blessed Sacrament, and the Cardinal was talking, and you could see the crowd. And he was asking Christ several questions, I think around 10 or even more, 10 questions.
Did Christ answer, Father?
Well, he wouldn't, because he has answered it already. And Christ says, I will not answer you anymore, because I will give you only one answer, the sign of Jonah, and I will not answer you anymore. And the funny thing is, he asked several questions, more than 10 questions, I think, in which he showed he did not know the answer. That's why he was asking Christ.
Yes.
And he kept on saying, and I'm just asking this question. I'm only asking.
I'm only
I'm
asking.
asking,
Okay.
yeah. Which shows that he confessed that he did not know the answer.
They were basic questions.
Now,
Difficult?
if you look at the questions, because you can look at it now,
Yes,
the
okay.
video, those questions had been answered by the Catechism long time ago. Now, if a cardinal, bishop of the biggest diocese in the Philippines does not know the answer to simple catechetical question, how can he answer the question, how do we save our souls? In fact, that was not one of the questions he asked.
Oh, it was not.
No. It was really very shallow question. They are more current events questions. I mean, it was so useless. It has nothing to do for my salvation.
Yes.
No. So, those questions had been answered by the catechism, but during his talk, he didn't answer it.
What do you think was the purpose for that?
Yeah,
Just parang airing out the question?
I don't know if that's his style of
Okay,
preaching
okay,
or
yes,
what. You know, it
possible.
could be a
Could be
style, or
yes, yes.
video or choreography
Okay,
or what,
okay,
and whatever
yes,
it
okay.
is. You know.
Yes, Father.
But he did not answer the questions. And he was asking Christ, what is the answer? And as Lodi says, Christ, of course, did not answer. Because Christ never answers those kinds of questions
Okay.
that he has already answered many, many times, and it's written down in the catechism. So he did not answer the question. So even the people who attended the seminar did not know the answer to the question.
Yes, Father.
So to your question, Tachi, so why hold a seminar where you do not answer questions?
Father, excuse me, we have only a few seconds to go.
So anyway, we're going to answer one of those questions, because I'm sure all those people were so confused because he did not answer the question, and Christ didn't answer the question. He was questioning Christ, and there were no answer up to the end of the speech. And we are going to answer his first question.
Thank you for viewing Spiritual Dialogue with Father Rodon de Castro. The questions being asked will be explained and answered by Father next episode. Thank you for viewing. Salamat po.
Hosanna, Hosanna.